I think our school's pretty safe with like security and stuff.
I feel pretty safe in my school. I have a lot of security guards in my school.
I've never been afraid to go to school.
Nothing ever bad has occurred.
I do feel safe, and I've never been afraid.
I'm not afraid to go to school. Like, there's barely any violence in my school.
No, I was never afraid to go to school.
My school does have a lot of fights.
No, my school's in like little country towns.
Describe any kind of violence you may have experienced or witnessed in school.
I've seen a few fights. We have about 2,500 kids in my school, so there's a lot of kids that don't get along with other kids.
Just fights, nothing like stabbings or anything.
Mostly girl fights.
So I've seen kids get knocked out before.
Drugs in school and people being robbed or things just not going how they should be.
I've never personally experienced any violence, but I have witnessed some bullying going on in our schools.
I honestly don't think there's ever been any violence in my school.
I've never really witnessed anything. I've only ever saw like on the news like the shooting.
There's not really a lot of like violence in our school. It's just like girls causing like stupid, unnecessary drama.
I've seen plenty of fist fights.
Nothing physical ever.
I watched a kid get like his head busted open in a locker. That was violent.
One guy was looking at this other guy's girlfriend, and the guy ended up having to get helivaced to the hospital.
I think my sophomore year, I was walking down the hallway and I saw a fight break out. Got pretty bad until the principal came in and broke it up.
Schools are a place where we make friends, hone our talents, and learn more about ourselves.
Unfortunately, schools can sometimes be causes of fear and anxiety because of bullying, fighting, and other violence.
Maybe we've been victims of school violence ourselves.
Maybe we've bullied someone. Maybe we've merely witnessed it.
No matter what the case, our faith can help us make it through these tough years and maybe even make a positive difference.
Violence and anger in our schools. That's what we'll be talking about today. Hi everyone, I'm Tom.
And I'm Rachel, and this is Real Faith TV.
Most of the teens on the street told us that they felt safe in their schools.
Although some have witnessed physical fighting and bullying.
We'll hear from them later, as well as meet our studio guests.
But first, let's meet our spotlight guest Christian, who will share with us some of the violence he has witnessed in his high school.
Let's hear from him now.
Violence that I've witnessed in school would definitely have to be, I saw like a kid get thrown up against one of the lockers, and the teacher was trying to break it up, and one of the kids just threw a punch. It was intended for the student but hit the teacher. I have not been treated with violence, but like I know some of my friends have gotten into fights, and I know that some have been threatened with fights. A lot of times it's in gym, like when we're playing a competitive sport and they get all like riled up and they start like getting chippy with each other, and then that's really where most of the fights like with my friends happen. And in the lunchroom also, I've seen probably 4 to 5 fights, probably like one at least one a month. Like it's pretty like common in our school. The first fight I saw was right in front of me. It was between 2 women. They were probably fighting over a guy. I'll be honest, I got chills because I went to a Catholic school from K to 8, and seeing my first fight in a public school, it really definitely like makes me keep my eyes open more and be more aware of the situation. For football, I know on Thanksgiving we played our biggest rivals and we lost by a point, and that didn't really sit well with our players. So when we were shaking hands in the line, a fight broke out. The whole team was in a fight, and I was on the sideline watching, and my jaw dropped. I did not believe what I was seeing, and it was sad to see that happens. In our school, I found it common, fights and violence, but in other schools, like I've talked to other people from other schools, and I've seen that they're kind of shocked to hear that I witnessed fights in our school, and it's very interesting because sometimes it doesn't really matter what kind of school you go to. It's just the way the kids act there and who goes there.
Like Christian, I was really surprised when I saw like my first fight in school, which was not this year but last year, and it's just kind of like I didn't expect it, and people started fighting, and just like everyone in the lunchroom rushed over, and it was like a big like thing, and everyone was talking about it, and they gave it so much like positive attention almost.
I know. And especially coming from a Catholic school like Christian, like it's particularly jarring to see like people just fighting over pretty much nothing most of the time.
Yeah.
Let's introduce our studio guests and see what kinds of violence and anger, if any, they've experienced in their school.
All right, the people with us today are Carly,
Ariana,
Drew,
and Jerry,
Jacob,
and Greta. Is violence prevalent in your school? Have you or any of your friends been affected by violence?
For me, in my school, it's not commonplace, but it is something that happens. Throughout my elementary and middle school years, I experienced a couple fights. A lot of times it's people being nasty to others and instigating it, and then something breaks out because eventually the people get tired of it. And a lot of people would always talk about fights, even if they never happened. It was like one of the hottest topics going around.
Exactly. I mean, like, again, my school wasn't that big on fighting either, but when they did fight, it was normally between the girls, and they would just get into these cat fights over, like, silly things, like boys and stuff, and it was just really, it was stupid when you look back at it, you know?
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with the both of you guys. Fights aren't really common, but they do happen at my school, and it's not even really big things. It's just small little arguments, and they get blown out of proportion, and it just turns into something that it shouldn't have been in the beginning. And they don't really happen in school during the classes or during the hallways. A lot of times it happens in the parking lot and out of school and off of school premises, but near school. So everyone in school is affected by them, but none of the teachers really have any position to like break it up, or they don't know about it.
I wouldn't say that I go to a violent school because there's really not like a ton of violence. There'll be some fights during lunch and stuff like that, but I think the most violent thing that goes on in school is powder puff, which is when the girls play football and the guys will be the cheerleaders. And it's supposed to be like a fun event and just like school camaraderie, but it's really turned into a violent event to the point where I didn't want to play because so many girls got hurt. The girls got concussions, and just it turned a friendly game into something where people were getting hurt. And just the rivalry between the juniors and seniors, I mean, it was crazy. It was like almost uncalled for.
In my middle school, we didn't like have a lot of fights, but then as like more like new students came, like, I don't know, maybe just the new students, they were used to having like fights in the hallways like all the time at their old schools, so maybe like it's more commonplace like from where they came from, but like they brought it into like a rural area, and like we like knew nothing about it, and then next thing you know, someone's getting like beaten up in the hallway in between classes.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky. There's virtually no violence at my school. Not that like everyone's holding each other's hands and singing Kumbaya, but there isn't really much physical violence. The only thing I can actually think of, which wasn't even a fight, it was just one guy got upset at another guy over who he was taking the formal that year, and he just like wanted to get into a fight with him and like was trying to get in his face, and the other guy was just like having none of it, which I guess was sort of good to see that he could be that mature and just sort of brush it off. I was just happy to see some guy being the bigger man, like with the actual fighting.
I went to private school, so a lot of fights didn't really happen, but as public school kids started coming, more fights started happening and things started getting more uglier.
In rare cases, the violence goes beyond mere bullying and fighting to shootings, sometimes involving many people.
Most of us probably don't have personal experience with the mass shootings like out of Columbine or Newtown, Connecticut.
But we hear about them on the news, and they can cut to our hearts in a painful way.
The devastation caused by some individuals can make us second-guess our personal safety and the overall security of our schools.
Next, we asked the teens on the street if they ever feared a school shooting happening in their hallways.
Let's hear what they had to say.
Does it scare you a little bit hearing about it in the news and stuff?
Yeah, a little bit, because like it is possible for it to happen.
I mean, you never know where it might happen, but it's kind of really scary thinking like what happened in Newtown.
They are scary, but I don't feel like they'd ever happen at our school.
I couldn't imagine any of my friends getting shot, you know? So it's kind of harsh to hear like something happening that, you know, it's like severe and so close by, you know?
I just feel like it could happen at any school, but we just practice lockdowns and stuff like that to protect ourselves.
It's very devastating to see people getting killed and shot at a place where you shouldn't have to fear that, you know what I mean, at school.
It's reality, it happens. It is a scary topic, but it doesn't scare me. Do I think that somebody in my school would have the reason to do that? Again, I mean, it could probably happen anywhere, yeah.
I absolutely think it can happen in our school because you never know what anybody's thinking or what they're plotting. Someone could just come to school and bring a gun, so I feel like they should like up the security with that.
It does scare me, but I don't have anything to worry about. Like, I feel like I'm safe where I'm at.
Our school's office, we don't really like have that secure of a system like to get into the school. So I mean, I've thought about it, but nothing's ever happened there with shooting, so.
I don't get scared by it, and I don't think it'll happen in our school, but I wish gun violence would be reduced.
It definitely scares me, but I don't really think that it could happen in my school.
It's like you don't think about it while you're in school, but then you hear about it on the news, and it's definitely like a rude awakening.
It probably could happen in my school, you know, you just don't know when it's going to happen.
Yeah, it does scare me.
It's pretty scary. And I'm afraid that someday that it's going to happen in my area or someplace that I know, and that is like truly traumatizing.
How has news of school shootings affected you, and what has helped you to move forward from it?
This past fall, I worked with the director of our school play, and he was just a great person to be with, always had such a great time with them, and everyone in our school loved him. And a couple weeks after our weekend of performances, Sandy Hook occurred, and he had a special connection with it because his nephew was one of the victims. And it just shook our entire school. We empathized with him, and it was just terrible.
Yeah, I go to school with Drew, and I was actually in the room with him when we were getting the live feed that Sandy Hook was occurring on the TV, and he had gotten the phone call to tell him that his nephew was one of the victims of it. To just see him was so heartbreaking to me, and to just know how valued he is at our school, and to think that he had to go through that struggle, him and his whole entire family, really shook our whole entire school to the core. And we got together though, and we had memorial services for him, and it really brought us together and tried to console him as a family.
Personally, I wasn't as affected as you guys were, but just the fear of knowing what happened, and like all the kids were around the same age as my sister, and she's very important to me, and I love her so much, and just thinking of what could have happened to her if it was at my school or at her school. And that's just so scary that that's what can happen in our schools, and that really affected me.
Like you said, like my little cousin, he was around the same age as the kids in that school, and he lives in New York, so there's not like that much security depending upon the school you go to. And like even though their school does have security, it was just like scary to think like it could happen to him, or like it could happen to my family too.
When it comes to large-scale violence in schools, the primary question is usually why?
Like in any tragedy where there are many victims, it's a difficult question to make sense of.
Finding God in such moments of despair may be difficult.
But if we can look at the kindness and support that follows these situations and see hope in the people around us,
we can understand that God is mourning with us and carrying us through the suffering.
To take preventative action, many of our schools have been responsive in making students feel more secure.
So students can focus on their education instead of feeling like their lives are in danger.
Let's go back to the teens on the street and find out what safety procedures their schools are taking.
And what they think of stepped-up security measures that are now commonplace.
First period, like 45 minutes into it, like all the doors are locked. In order to get in, you have to go to the front door and check in with the main office. So before like the incident in Connecticut, like it was just kind of like opened. So I mean that's better because not everyone can just walk into our school now.
We have lockdowns and fire drills, evacuation drills.
We have a lot of bully prevention like programs, and like I guess it helps, but a lot of people don't care about it. So.
Well, we do the usual lockdown where everyone gets into a corner, trying to get out of view of windows and doors. I don't really see how that really helps. I mean, if a gunman wanted to come in, he would come in and he would, do his thing.
Yeah, we don't really have that many safety procedures, but like it's such a small town, I guess, that nothing really happens.
We have security guards that roam our school, and our doors are locked during school hours. And we have security cameras in every hallway, and I think they're moderately effective.
Now our school locks all the doors at all times, and we have to be let in by the front desk lady.
We have like a lot of security guards and a police officer who's always there, so it feels pretty safe.
We got security. That's really it.
9/11 drills, I think they're called. We do bomb drills. We do fire drills twice every month. From what we are doing, it is working. Nothing's ever happened.
Well, yeah, we haven't ever had any problems, so I'm sure it's fine.
I think schools are doing a very good job, and I would just say to keep it up, you know what I mean? Just make sure kids are aware and make sure you're looking at every aspect of any situation that could happen.
As Catholics, we have a duty to pray for those who have been personally affected by tragedies.
For the souls of any who were killed, for the families who have lost loved ones, and for the person or persons who committed the act of violence.
Think about what your school can do to be more safe and address those ideas with adults who might be able to implement them.
Next, our Spotlight guest Christian talks about whether or not he feels safe in his school environment.
And how new safety precautions have given the students some preparedness in a worst-case scenario.
been afraid or have felt that I wasn't safe. But for my friends sometimes, like, they're like, oh, this guy has beef with me or he wants to fight me. So I always offer, like, my friends comfort, and I try to, like, shoo them away from fighting, not, like, encourage it. So I try to, like, say, like, oh, they probably didn't mean it that way, and it goes on your personal record, and it's really not a smart thing to do. Stories of guns and violence around the United States don't really scare me, but I think it's something to definitely pay attention to, because you never know where it can happen. It can happen in the school next to you or in your school or 1,000 miles away. I know in Columbine and even Newtown, like, those are two examples of really, like, scary situations that you hope don't happen to you. Our school, safety procedures, there's police officers that monitor our school and our hallways and our lunchrooms. There's a bullying anonymous name box where if someone's being bullied or is experiencing violence, they drop a note in the principal's office. And we do shooter drills. It's an interactive drill to, like, make sure that the teachers don't open the doors and the students are safe. When kids go to school, they should feel safe. They're not there to be scared of defending themselves for a fight. They're there to learn. They should feel safe at school without having to, like, think about it. But I think they should be prepared. So I don't think we're being too cautious. Those drills, they offer a lot of preparation, especially because, like, if we didn't have those drills and that situation happened, none of us would know what to do. With society changing these days, I think it's appropriate for the change.
What are some ways you guys feel protected in school or need to feel more protected in school?
Well, for me, my school's on a Navy base, so I usually feel protected because we have to get in with the pass and they have to check us, so nobody can just waltz in.
Right, like, just like you, my school's like that, but also I feel really protected because my teachers really care about the students, and I know that if we were ever in a situation where someone was trying to cause us harm, the teachers they would step in and they would make sure that we were okay.
We'd have policemen, like, guarding the school to make sure, like, nobody got in who wasn't, like, known by the faculty and staff. So, and then, like, 10 minutes after, like, homeroom started, then they'd, like, start locking all the doors outside and make sure, like, no one else got in.
We have lockdown drills every so often, but ever since the shooting in Newtown, they've gotten a lot more serious. Like, during lockdowns, it would just be like, oh, we get out of class, like, everybody's talking, people are on their cell phones. But now it's just like there's fear in the room. And it's really interesting how it's changed and how when we hear that, we all kind of, like, there's, like, a little, like, tension in the room and everyone just sits there really quiet and the teachers take it really seriously. So I think it's definitely, like, hyped up since all this stuff has been happening.
In the 1994 pastoral message, Confronting a Culture of Violence, a Catholic Framework for Action, the USCCB wrote that
what we believe, where we are, and how we live out our faith can make a great difference in the struggle against violence.
We must confront this growing culture of violence with a commitment to life, a vision of hope, and a call to action.
While we might not be able to stop everyone around us from fighting,
the joy with which we serve God in our lives can show others that anger and violence doesn't bring happiness.
Let's go back to Christian, where he gives some advice on dealing with school violence.
And how it's important to look to God and the power of prayer for protection.
Advice I would give to fellow students or other peers, if they saw a fight, definitely speak up and go tell someone, let someone else of authority or an adult handle it. Someone who's more capable of handling it, because sometimes if you get involved, it just provokes it even more. And the fight just gets bigger and bigger, or they'll be embarrassed. There's always hope. If you ever feel like you're alone, always look to God, because He's always there to help. Saying just a little prayer when I'm just sitting there, like walking to class, or just sitting there as a teacher setting up something, just praying like, Lord, just allow everyone to be safe, and all members that are here in school just be here for a reason, and that's to learn, not to be hung up in violence.
I know that in school there was this fight, and it was between two boys, and they started, like, hyping it up on Facebook. And I remember not saying anything, and I think it was because I didn't want to get caught up in the middle of it, so I just never told anyone about it, and I just let it go. But one of my closest friends actually went to the principal and said something about the fight. And so then 3 days before the fight actually happened, the principal got to one of the kids and told them that if they did fight, they'd get expelled, and it stopped people from getting hurt and expelled.
A lot of times it's miscommunications, and people just don't understand, and things get disoriented, and it could always be fixed in a different way. And I think that people try to make it something it's not.
I don't really know like what to tell somebody about like what to do to like prepare for that, because you can't prepare for a gunman coming into your school. Like it's not something we even think about. But it has like, I do have fear about it, but I also tell myself like I can't like stay in my room all day like in my little bubble. Like that's not living my life. I need to go get an education. I need to go do that. But it's really troubling because I don't really know what I'd do like if that happened. I don't think any of us like really know what we do or like how to even prepare for that.
I think like we become like so numb to like hearing it so often. Like there's shootings like here, there's bombings there, and like you like grow up hearing that, and like you become so used to it that like you're like numb to it sort of. Like you don't know how to react. Like if it actually happened to you, you wouldn't know how to react at all.
Yeah, and it's that feeling like, oh, it's not gonna happen to me. Like it happened here, but it's not gonna happen to me. The fifth commandment tells us, you shall not kill.
But according to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, this commandment is about much more than killing.
It's telling us not to harm those around us, including with our hatred and anger.
Despite the words, you shall not, it's not about what we shouldn't do, but about what we should do.
We should be trying to love as God loves.
And show love by praying that that person will return to God's mercy.
Putting the whole situation in God's hands can be the most important way to help us heal.
Next, we asked the teens on the street how their faith and Jesus' life has been an influence on them dealing with school violence.
Let's hear what they had to say.
I know that Jesus wouldn't want like violence and stuff, so I don't take part in it.
You should just always just make sure you look out for one another, because we're all we got, you know what I mean?
I mean, it always kind of helps me when I pray.
I think he just reminds me to do the right thing, not antagonize anyone and not participate, but try to stand up for someone who's being put down.
I've never really like related the two, so I can't really think of an answer.
If we know that he is there, it helps us. Just like believe that the situation we're in, we're gonna be fine.
I just kind of see like all the stuff he did for us and like putting himself like on the cross, like make peace. So I kind of separate people and try to make everyone get along.
Well, you know, he's a very strong man, Jesus. You know, he went through a lot, and he showed that basically he took all this type of damage to himself, and he still in the end showed that, you know, he showed that he still loved everybody the same way, you know? So I think that's his message he's trying to like get across.
How can we be more like Jesus when we confront school violence?
And how can his life and teachings help us to cope with the violence and anger we encounter?
I guess it's to remind us to always think in the long term, and that in truth the violence really won't get us anywhere and it's not going to help us in our lives. So just to think through and be peaceful like Jesus was.
When you look back to what Jesus did, he always like turned the other cheek, and he forgave the people who hurt him most, and that showed such strength, and that's really what we have to do, and that's how we can stop violence and stop letting other people's words hurt us as much as they do.
Think back to the Gospels when Jesus is being crucified and Pilate saying, what shall we do with this man? And all the people go, crucify him, crucify him. And when he walks through the town and they're beating him and they're yelling at him, and how like it hurts me watching that because I feel his pain and I almost want to like get out there and like defend him, and I want him like to defend himself. And to me, like when I first like think about that, I feel like Jesus is being weak. But then I really like reflect on it, and I realize that he's being the stronger man, and he's really like setting an example for us. And when he gets up on the cross and he's crucified, he says, forgive them, for they know not what they've done. And just like his forgiveness about people were hurting him, so like worse than I think that any of us will hopefully endure in our lives, and yet he forgave them. So I think if that's not a great example, I don't know what is.
I agree. I mean, like, if you are being bullied or abused in school, then you have every right to stand up for yourself, and more importantly, to go to the people who can actually help you and solve the problem. But it is the message of forgiveness and turning the other cheek, that just, like, fighting back is almost never the answer. Because if someone's, like, just going at you to antagonize you or trying to get attention, then you should really just like walk away and just not let it bother you. It might hurt your pride to just sort of walk away, but it's better than actually fighting them or getting into some kind of confrontation with them. Fighting violence with violence is never the solution.
Pray for peace in our schools and communities, for both those who get bullied and those who bully others.
Pray that God will help them to realize that violence doesn't solve their problems.
We are also called to reach out to people who are victims of bullying, or maybe don't have a lot of friends.
Perhaps your kindness will make more of a difference than you realize.
How does your faith help you to resist or deal with violence and anger?
We'd love to hear from you.
Contact us at realfaithtv.com.
Or share your thoughts with us on Twitter.
And we'll leave you today with this thought.
One of the Beatitudes that Jesus taught us in the Sermon on the Mount is,
"Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God."
Jesus is our model to live as peacemakers, addressing problems, but doing so in a way that respects others' dignity.
By following Jesus' example, we can help to spread God's love in our school and communities.
Maybe your witness will even change someone's life.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on
Real Faith TV. God bless.
So, I got this new family, and I don't know what it is about this one, but she can't seem to put down that toy all day long. Tap, 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 tap. Oh, and she even talks to it. She talks to that more than she talks to him. What's up, bro? Nice shirt. Who's she talking to? Her mom? She talks to her mom a lot.